Rain is setting in over parts of New South Wales this morning with severe weather warnings in place as a powerful low pressure system develops off the coast. 6 hourly totals of up to 120 millimetres are possible in some parts, enough to lead to flash flooding.
And the weather system is also set to bring damaging and locally destructive winds to parts of central and northern New South Wales from today. We are going to be live on the Central Coast a little later, and Nate will be here shortly to bring you up to date with all the latest warnings. But first, let's go to our reporter. Max Tillman is across it all for us, and he is in Sydney. Max, so what advice do authorities have for residents this morning as the weather worsens?
Good morning, James. Well, we're here on Victoria Road in Drummoyne, one of Sydney's main arterial thoroughfares on a busy Tuesday morning. And as you were saying, a lot of Sydney-siders were preparing for potentially the first East Coast low to hit New South Wales in 3 years. But we've heard from the Bureau of Meteorology this morning that that's effectively been downgraded to a coastal low. Now, that still means we're expecting to see severe winds, strong surf and potential riverine and flash flooding across broad parts of the state, all the way from the south coast up to the mid-north coast of New South Wales. We've seen in only the last hour a watch and act warning has been issued for a broad swathe of the Hunter up into the mid-north coast, from effectively Newcastle all the way up to Forster. Now, here in Sydney, we are seeing impacts. There's currently an advice level warning for minor riverine flooding on the Georges River in southwest Sydney that effectively runs from Holsworthy all the way up to Cabramatta. But as I was saying, it does appear as though this system has been effectively downgraded from the worst predictions. Let's take a quick listen to what the Bureau had to say on that.
This low pressure system isn't going to stick around long enough to cause those really hazardous impacts. So if you think back to 2007, those winds and waves were strong enough to push the Pasha Bulker right onto the coast near Newcastle. Not expecting to see those sorts of high-end severe weather, but the message for those across New South Wales and Victoria is that we're still expecting severe weather, heavy rainfall, flash flooding and damaging to destructive winds for today and also tomorrow.
Now, Sydney Airport has borne some of the brunt of the weather this morning. We've seen multiple flights cancelled, 6 flights in the last hour, potentially 7 next hour, and there could potentially be cancellations throughout the day. We were warned by Sydney Airport, particularly Qantas, the major domestic and international carrier, that more cancellations were anticipated. It remains to be seen what some of these downgrades will do for those cancellations, but broadly across the state, there are already SES crews on the ground in some of the more high-risk parts of New South Wales. We've seen crews in Kiama on the south coast, crews in Auburn in Western Sydney, just to give you an idea of how broad these effects could be. And unfortunately for the people of Taree, who are really only in the last few weeks have begun the clean-up effort from record flooding, there are also SES crews on the ground in Taree preparing for the worst. Now, it is important to remember SES crews across New South Wales are making sure that residents are taking heed of the warnings. So we know to secure or put away items around the house, particularly as these strong winds come through. That's a major warning from the SES. Keeping cars under cover and away from power lines. We've heard that roughly 8 metres away from a power line is the safest possible distance. Don't drive, ride or walk through floodwaters, and preparing an emergency kit with essential items for any eventuality. But the most important warning, James, is for people to monitor these conditions.
That is good advice. All right, Max Tillman reporting there from Sydney. Thank you. And to keep everyone up to date with the conditions, here is Nate with your latest warnings.
We're already at triple digits in the gauges for some along the New South Wales coast. This has only really started developing overnight, and we're expecting to see a heck of a lot more rain. This is what the radars look like. You can see there's a big patch of heavy rain just sitting offshore at the moment that's about to start moving into the coastline there. But further south, down around Jarvis Bay, is where we've seen some of the biggest falls over the last 24 hours. hours. Here are the warnings, quite widespread from the south of Queensland right the way down to southern parts of New South Wales for that heavy rainfall, damaging to destructive winds. We could see gusts to 125 kilometres an hour. That's the kind of wind that'll definitely bring down trees, could bring down power lines as well. It's going to be very woolly out there. This system is currently just sitting off the Hunter. It's a complex low, so even though I'm only showing one L here for the centre of circulation, there's likely to be several over the coming couple of days. Now, anywhere to the south of it is where we're likely to see the heaviest of the rain. That will continue through the day for essentially the same part of the coast. That's what's going to help those totals to really rise quite quickly. Flash flooding is a major concern, but riverine rises are also likely for parts of the east of New South Wales. And then I'm keeping an eye on the sea as well, because the winds will be from the same direction for a long time, helping to pick up some big surf conditions. Certainly hazardous, probably damaging. It could be talking some coastal erosion for some. It is very, very wild. Team, we'll keep you across the warnings right through the morning.
Thanks very much, Nate. Well, plenty happening this new financial year, including a change to the super guarantee, more pay for those on minimum wage and award wages, and also changes to paid parental leave. So we'll keep you up to date throughout the show. Some of those changes coming in, though, are for students in certain fields who are about to get payment for their mandatory school placements. Arianna Levy is across it all for us live from Brisbane. Ari, what does this mean for students who have to do quite lengthy prac subjects and go into hospitals and schools and the like to get their degrees?
Look, this is incredible news for so many students right across the country. Effectively, it means that anyone that's studying for a university degree in nursing, midwifery, teaching or social work will now get to have about $330 to their hip pockets. That is a payment from the federal government that is looking at curbing sort of the cost of living crisis. But we are in the 1st of July and effectively crazy to think that it's already halfway through the year. There are just so many changes that are coming into effect from today. So it's not just those practical payments for students, but we're also seeing the minimum wage increase. So that is increasing to about 3.5%. That means millions of Australian workers right across the country will get a pay rise from today. And this follows an annual review from the Fair Work Commission. On top of that, superannuation is another big one. It's something that you mentioned just before. That is also going up. Previously, the guarantee rate, which is the amount that an employer needs to pay into your superannuation, will be increasing from 11.5% now to 12%. And on top of that, we're also seeing paid parental leave increase. The amount that you can take has now increased to about 120 days. And that's for children that are either born or adopted from today onwards. So that is very exciting news. But of course, with all these increases to our hip pocket, that does also mean sort of increases to prices. We are also going to see power prices increase across 3 states. Now that includes New South Wales, South Australia, as well as southeast Queensland right here. And this is going to vary from state to state as well as provider, but the average residential customer that has a controlled load is looking at an increase to their power bill of about $70. So that is quite substantial. Now, we have heard from tax and super expert Susan Franks, who says that the easiest way to check that all these changes are coming to effect and working out correctly is to look at your payslip.
Well, the easiest way is to check your payslip and to make sure that the amount is being correctly calculated on the payslip. And then the second thing is always just double checking with your superannuation fund and also with the ATO as to whether the payments have actually been made.
Now, I know, Bridget, that was a lot of information to throw at you, but the easiest way to keep across all these new changes that are coming into effect from today is to keep across the ABC's website. There is a handy article on there that will help you sort of navigate all these changes and make sure you're across them.
Yeah, have a look at that one. Thanks so much, Ari.
And keep watching News
Yes,
Breakfast
of course.
as well.
All of your ABC coverage is, of course, very comprehensive. Let's get some more news. Emma is here.
Thank you. The jury in the trial of accused triple murderer Erin Patterson will continue deliberating today. After 9 weeks of evidence, the jury is now deciding if Ms Patterson deliberately put death cap mushrooms in a beef Wellington lunch to kill her relatives. She maintains her innocence and insists it was a tragic accident. The South Australian government has conceded there's not much it can do to fix a toxic algal bloom plaguing the state's coastline. The bloom is now affecting metropolitan Adelaide beaches. The Environment Minister Susan Close says algae is proving very persistent, despite hopes winter weather would bring an end to the ecological disaster. Australia's house prices have continued to rise for a fifth straight month, with national values up 0.6% in June. According to Cotality, which is formerly known as CoreLogic, Hobart was the only capital city to see a dip in prices. Falling interest rates are being credited with the overall boost in market confidence. The Reserve Bank will meet again next week, with banks expecting an interest rate cut of 0.25%. Casino operator Star Entertainment is facing a fresh crisis as a deal for it to exit a major Brisbane development is on the brink of collapse. The group was set to sell its 50% stake in a Queen's Wharf hotel complex to its Hong Kong-based investment partners before the two firms issued a notice to terminate the deal. The notice is due to take effect in 5 days. The ACT today has become the first jurisdiction in Australia to raise the age a child can be responsible for a crime to 14. Instead of facing charges, young people will now be referred to a therapeutic support panel to help address the causes of their behaviour. There will be exceptions for the most serious crimes, including murder and specific sexual offences. Iranian state media has reported an increase in Iran's official death toll in its war with Israel, saying 935 people were killed during the 12-day conflict. It comes as Iran insists on its right to continue enriching uranium while also not allowing UN nuclear watchdog inspectors to visit its nuclear sites.
And on the financial markets this morning, ASX is steady this morning, Dow up a bit, and the Aussie dollar at 65 US cents this morning.
Now, if there's one thing people in the Northern Territory love, it is an explosive evening, and it will be one tonight, quite literally, because hundreds of tonnes of fireworks are set to go off for Territory Day. The director of tonight's display, Mark Killip, says more interstate visitors are heading to the NT to see it for themselves. He has even designed a special rainbow unicorn firework after his daughter commented that there was nothing with rainbows. There you go, Bridget. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I love a rainbow myself. I think that'd be beautiful to see. Just if you've got a dog, leave that dog inside. Make sure you check on your dogs, check on your vulnerable people, because it can be pretty intense.
We've both covered Krakenite in the top
Yes.
end, and it is certainly an experience.